Emily Carter had always been quiet, but that night, inside the Carter family's Fifth Avenue penthouse, her silence felt heavier than the marble floors beneath her wheelchair. The city lights of Manhattan glittered outside the windows, like a world she could see but never touch. Her father, Daniel, was getting ready for an important charity dinner, adjusting the cufflinks on his crisp white shirt. But Emily wasn't thinking about him. She was thinking about the woman standing behind her, Vanessa, her new stepmother. Vanessa looked perfect as always. Dior heels, a tight silk dress that shimmered under the room's warm lighting, and eyes that softened only when Daniel glanced her way. The moment he turned his back, the softness vanished. "Move," Vanessa whispered sharply, nudging Emily's wheelchair with her knee. "You're blocking the hallway." Emily's hands tightened on the wheels, but she didn't speak. She never did. Not when Vanessa snapped. Not when Vanessa sighed dramatically at the sound of her medical equipment. Not when Vanessa called her dead weight under her breath. Tonight felt worse, heavier, like something bad was waiting just past the door. Daniel walked over, placing a gentle hand on Emily's shoulder. "Sweetheart, tonight is important. I need you to be on your best behavior, okay?" Emily nodded, her voice barely a breath. "Yes, Daddy." Vanessa smiled sweetly at Daniel, then leaned down close to Emily's ear when he stepped away. "Try not to embarrass us," she whispered, her breath cold. "And don't start your breathing tricks tonight. I'm not dealing with that." Emily felt a familiar tightening in her chest, a mixture of fear and the actual medical problems she lived with every day. She swallowed hard. She wished she could tell her father. She wished she could tell anyone. But she stayed quiet. As the elevator doors opened and the three of them prepared to leave for the Plaza Hotel, Emily felt a chill run down her spine. She didn't know why, but she knew something terrible was coming. And the moment the doors closed, Vanessa's hand gripped the back of her wheelchair just a little too tightly. Emily Carter hadn't always lived in a penthouse overlooking Manhattan. Before the accident, she lived in a small house in upstate New York, where her father grilled burgers on weekends and her mother braided her hair every morning before school. Life was simple, warm, full of laughter, but it shattered on a rainy night 3 years earlier, the night a truck skidded through an intersection and crushed the side of their car. Emily survived. Her mother didn't. And Emily woke up unable to feel anything from the waist down. Doctors told her father it was a miracle she survived at all. Emily didn't feel like a miracle, she felt like a burden. Every wheelchair ramp installed, every physical therapy session, every medical bill, she felt it piling on her father's shoulders. Daniel tried to hide the stress, but Emily saw it. She saw the sleepless nights, the long hours at work, the way he rarely smiled the way he used to. When Daniel met Vanessa a year later, everything changed again. Vanessa was beautiful, sharp and ambitious, a woman who fit naturally into Daniel's fast-rising world in Manhattan. But she didn't fit naturally with Emily. At first, Vanessa pretended to care. She bought Emily a new iPad to help her with school, smiled for pictures, even kissed the top of her head once or twice when Daniel was looking. But it didn't take long for the mask to slip. Emily felt it in small ways. Vanessa moving her medical equipment out of sight before guests arrived, sighing loudly whenever she had to help lift Emily into the car, rolling her eyes when Emily moved too slowly. Emily kept everything inside. She didn't want her father to lose someone else. She didn't want him to feel that loving her meant losing every good thing in his life. So she stayed quiet. Always quiet. But lately the air between her and Vanessa had shifted. The coldness grew sharper, more direct. And as they rode the elevator down toward the waiting car, Emily sensed something dark settling over the night. Vanessa leaned down and whispered something so cruel Emily's breath caught in her throat. The black Mercedes waited at the curb, its headlights glowing against the slick pavement. Daniel hurried ahead, checking messages on his iPhone as he pushed open the door. Vanessa followed gracefully, her heels tapping like a metronome of impatience. Emily hesitated at the building's entrance, the cool night air brushing her face. She used to love fresh air. Now it made her chest tighten with nerves. A valet rushed to help Daniel, offering a polite smile toward Emily. She smiled back softly. He was the first kind face she'd seen all evening. "Come on," Vanessa said sharply, waving for the driver to bring the portable ramp. "We're already late." Inside the car, the contrast was almost unreal. The soft leather seats, the faint scent of expensive perfume, the city glowing outside the windows like a dream Emily could only watch through glass. She folded her hands in her lap, wishing she wasn't trembling. Daniel glanced at her. "You excited, sweetheart? The Plaza Hotel is beautiful. You'll love it." Emily nodded, though her stomach twisted. Vanessa crossed her legs, staring out the window. "Just remember what we talked about," she said, keeping her voice low. "No coughing fits tonight, no wheezing. You're not going to ruin this event." Emily swallowed hard. "I'll try." "Don't try," Vanessa snapped quietly. "Do it." The car rolled through Manhattan, passing Fifth Avenue shops glowing with warm lights. Tiffany, Cartier, all the places Vanessa adored. She smiled at the reflections in the glass, not at the child sitting inches away. When they reached the Plaza Hotel, the doorman rushed forward, opening the door with practiced grace. Guests in elegant gowns and tailored suits glided across the entrance like they belonged to another species. Emily felt painfully out of place, a small girl in a medical wheelchair wrapped in fears she couldn't speak. Daniel lifted her gently down the ramp, adjusting her coat. "You look beautiful," he whispered. Emily managed a small smile. "Thank you, Daddy." They entered the lobby, golden lights shimmering overhead. But before they could reach the reception area, Vanessa leaned down and placed a hand on Emily's shoulder. Firm, cold, warning. What she whispered made Emily's heart stop cold in her chest. The Plaza's ballroom shimmered with warm golden lights, strings of crystal reflecting off polished floors. Laughter echoed from wealthy guests who floated between tables as if the world existed solely for their comfort. Emily kept her eyes low, her hands resting gently on her wheelchair's sides. She tried to breathe steadily. She tried to pretend she belonged. But Vanessa walked beside her like a shadow made of ice. As they approached the reception table, a woman in a navy gown bent down and smiled at Emily. "Aren't you adorable? Is this your daughter?" she asked Vanessa. Vanessa stiffened. "Stepdaughter," she corrected instantly, placing heavy emphasis on the first word. "She's special." The woman nodded politely, but her eyes softened with pity. Emily hated pity. It made her feel smaller than the wheelchair already did. Daniel stepped away to greet business partners near the bar, leaving Emily and Vanessa alone for the first time that evening. Vanessa's fingers tightened around the handle of the wheelchair as she leaned in. Her voice turned razor sharp. "Do not draw attention to yourself. Do not make a sound unless someone speaks to you. And for God's sake, don't start that pathetic breathing thing you always do." Emily lowered her gaze. "I'm not trying to—" "Enough." Vanessa stood upright, her smile snapping back into place like a mask. "We're here to impress people, not babysit." A waiter drifted by offering hors d'oeuvres. Vanessa took one without acknowledging Emily. "Honestly," she murmured, "I don't know why your father insists on bringing you. These events are for adults, important adults." Emily felt the sting in her chest, a mix of shame and the familiar tightness that sometimes crept in when she was stressed. She inhaled slowly, trying to keep it under control. She knew Vanessa was watching for any sign of weakness. As the string quartet shifted to a brighter melody, the crowd parted slightly, revealing a tall man in a tailored tuxedo walking toward them. He had kind eyes, warm and steady. Emily recognized him from a magazine article her father once showed her. Ethan Hayes. A billionaire, a philanthropist, and someone who instantly noticed the tension around the small girl in the wheelchair. He smiled gently. "Hey there, is everything okay?" Vanessa's face froze. Emily opened her mouth to answer, but Vanessa's nails dug suddenly into her shoulder. Ethan Hayes paused when he saw Emily flinch. His warm smile faded into a look of quiet concern. "Hey," he said softly, lowering himself slightly so he was closer to her eye level. "You look a little uncomfortable. Do you need anything?" Emily wanted to answer. She wanted to say yes, that her shoulder hurt, that her chest felt tight, that she wished someone, anyone, would protect her. But before she could speak, Vanessa's hand tightened cruelly, fingers pressing hard into the tender spot between her neck and shoulder. "She's fine," Vanessa said, her voice honeyed and controlled. "Emily's just shy." Ethan's eyes flicked to Vanessa's hand. She instantly removed it, smiling wider as if nothing had happened. Emily swallowed the pain. Daniel returned just then, cheerful and oblivious, holding a glass of sparkling water. "Ethan, I didn't know you were flying in tonight." "Last-minute decision," Ethan said, standing up straight. "I wanted to support the foundation, and I'm glad I came." His gaze drifted back to Emily, gentle, probing. "Your daughter is wonderful." Emily's cheeks warmed. No one said things like that to her, not anymore. Vanessa's smile sharpened. "Again, stepdaughter." Daniel shot her a look, but she pretended not to notice. Moments later, a small group of socialites approached. One of the women, wearing a glittering silver dress, leaned down toward Emily. "Sweetheart, you must be exhausted sitting in that chair all night. Poor thing." Vanessa seized the opportunity. She placed a dramatic hand on her chest. "Yes, it's been so hard for her. She has trouble controlling her breathing sometimes. It can get very disruptive." Emily froze. The way Vanessa said disruptive wasn't concern. It was humiliation disguised as compassion. A few guests exchanged awkward glances. Others stared at Emily with distant pity, as if she were a fragile ornament instead of a child. Daniel frowned. "Vanessa, that's not appropriate." But Vanessa talked over him. "We just don't want her to have one of her episodes tonight. Isn't that right, Emily? Sweetie, remember what we practiced?" Every word stabbed deeper. Emily felt her throat tighten, her breath catching the way it always did when panic mixed with her condition. Ethan stepped closer, sensing something was wrong. "Emily," he asked quietly, "are you okay? You look pale." Vanessa's smile vanished for a split second. And in that split second, Emily's breathing suddenly hitched, sharp, painful, audible. Daniel's head snapped toward Emily the moment he heard her breath hitch. A soft, strained sound escaped her throat, barely audible over the music, but unmistakable to a father who had heard it too many times. His expression changed instantly, the lightness draining away. "Emily," he said, kneeling beside her. "Sweetheart, slow breaths. In through your nose, out through your mouth. You okay?" Emily nodded quickly, even though she wasn't. Her chest rose in short, shallow movements. She tried to steady herself because she could feel Vanessa standing behind her, like a blade about to drop. Vanessa forced a sweet smile. "She's fine, Daniel. It's just her anxiety acting up again, probably overwhelmed. These events can be a lot for her." "That didn't sound like anxiety," Ethan said quietly, his eyes narrowing. "It sounded physical." Vanessa tensed. "Well, I would know. I take care of her every day." Emily felt those words hit like a slap. Take care? Vanessa barely tolerated her. Daniel looked between them. Emily pale and trembling, Ethan steady and concerned, Vanessa lips tight despite her smile. Doubt flickered across his face. "Emily," he asked gently, "did something happen? Did someone upset you?" Emily wanted to speak, her lips parted. The truth trembled on her tongue. But Vanessa's hand slid to the back of the wheelchair, out of Daniel's sight. Her nails pressed sharply, just enough for Emily to feel the warning. Emily swallowed. I'm okay, Daddy." The lie tasted bitter. Daniel still seemed unconvinced. He stood and turned toward Vanessa. "Maybe we should take her outside for some air." Vanessa's jaw tightened. "Daniel, you're overreacting. She just needs to calm down. Let her sit. She's distracting from the event." Ethan's eyes widened slightly at the word distracting. "She's a child, Vanessa," he said, voice low but firm. "A child who's struggling to breathe." Vanessa's face flushed with irritation. "With all due respect, Ethan, you barely know—" Daniel cut her off. "Enough. I'm taking her outside, now." He moved toward the handles of the wheelchair. But Vanessa was faster. Her hand clamped down on the back bar, stopping the chair from moving. The room seemed to freeze. Daniel stared at her, stunned. "Vanessa, what are you doing?" Vanessa smiled thinly, and Emily felt dread crawl up her spine as she whispered, "Teaching her a lesson." Daniel froze at Vanessa's words. For a moment, the noise of the ballroom, the music, the clinking glasses, the murmured conversations, blurred into a dull roar behind him. His gaze locked onto his wife's face. searching for some sign he'd misheard. But Vanessa looked calm, controlled, almost proud. "What do you mean, teaching her a lesson?" he asked, voice low with disbelief. Vanessa flipped her hair back with practiced elegance. "Daniel, you baby her too much. She needs to learn how to handle herself without panicking over every little thing." Emily felt her throat tighten again, not from her condition, but from fear. Her hands trembled on her lap. "That's not panic," Ethan said, his tone sharper now. "She's struggling to breathe. You can see that. Look at her." Vanessa's jaw ticked. "You're reading too much into it. Emily exaggerates when she wants attention." Emily's breath stuttered. That word, exaggerates, always sliced deep. She wasn't exaggerating. She never exaggerated. Daniel knelt again, gently cupping Emily's cheek. "Sweetheart," he whispered, "listen to Daddy, okay? Deep breaths. I'm right here." A small tear slipped down Emily's face. Vanessa scoffed. "Daniel, really? People are watching. You're causing a scene." "No," Ethan said firmly, "she is." The tension snapped like a wire pulled too tight. Several nearby guests subtly shifted, pretending not to listen while leaning just close enough to catch every word. Emily could feel their eyes on her. Pity, curiosity, judgment. It all blended into one awful weight on her small shoulders. Daniel stood. For the first time, his voice wasn't soft. "Let go of the chair, Vanessa." Her fingers tightened. "Daniel, stop embarrassing us. I said she's fine." "She's not fine," he snapped. Emily flinched at the raise in volume, her breath catching again. Short, shallow, painful. Ethan leaned closer to Daniel. "Let me help you get her outside." But before Daniel could agree, Vanessa suddenly leaned down toward Emily, her face inches away. Her lips curled in a smile only the child could see. "You're ruining everything," she whispered, breath sharp. "If you start wheezing again, I swear." Emily's chest spasmed. Her breath broke. "Mom, I can't," she whispered. Then louder, choked, trembling. "I can't breathe." Everyone nearby turned, and Vanessa's hand began to push down on her fragile shoulder. Hard. Emily's breath came out in broken, painful gasps. Her chest rose sharply, then stalled, trembling as if her lungs were fighting against invisible pressure. Vanessa's fingers dug deeper into the small girl's shoulder, not enough for the crowd to clearly see, but enough for Emily to feel the painful clamp, enough to make it harder to breathe. Daniel stepped forward instantly. "Vanessa, stop! She's saying she can't breathe!" "Oh, please," Vanessa muttered through clenched teeth, her smile wide and fake for the onlookers. "She always does this when she wants attention. Don't encourage it." Ethan took one decisive step closer. He was no longer smiling. His voice dropped, low and razor-sharp. "Let go of her, now!" Vanessa ignored him. "Emily," she said sweetly, bending down again, "remember what we talked about at home. No scenes, no dramatics. Breathe quietly." Emily tried. She really tried. Her lungs burned as she forced in a shaky inhale. The pressure on her shoulder made the tightness worse, sending a wave of panic crashing through her. "Dad," she choked softly. "Daddy, please." Daniel's face twisted in panic. "Vanessa, for God's sake, she needs space." He reached for the wheelchair handles again, desperate to get Emily away. Vanessa jerked the chair slightly back, her grip still iron strong. "If you pull her now, you'll make her panic worse." "Daniel, think. Let the doctors handle it, not here, not in the middle of a ballroom." But there were no doctors nearby. Only her. Only Vanessa. Ethan didn't hesitate anymore. He reached forward and placed his hand on Vanessa's wrist, not harsh, but firm enough to stop her movement. "You're hurting her," he said. "I can see it. And everyone here is starting to see it too." A few guests were whispering now. One woman gasped softly as she noticed Emily's paling face. A man nearby stepped closer, uncertain but concerned. Vanessa yanked her hand away from Ethan, eyes blazing. "Don't touch me! You have no right!" "I have every right if a child is in danger," Ethan shot back. Emily wheezed again, louder this time, her small body shaking. Daniel's voice cracked. "Sweetheart, stay with me. We're getting you help." But Vanessa wasn't done. She leaned closer, hatred flickering in her eyes. "If you don't stop this," she hissed, "I swear..." And then Emily's entire body jolted as a sharp spasm ripped through her chest. The sharp spasm jerked through Emily's small body like an electric shock. Her hands shot to her chest instinctively, fingers curling as if she could somehow hold her ribs still. Her breaths came out in tiny, broken squeaks, each one weaker than the last. Daniel's face went white. "Emily, sweetheart, look at me. Look at Daddy." But Emily couldn't. Her eyes were unfocused, glossy with fear, darting from Daniel to the chandelier above, as if the world were tilting. Vanessa took a single step back, her expression flickering, fear, annoyance, calculation, all in one heartbeat. She scanned the room and saw more faces turning toward them now. Conversation stalled. A waiter froze mid-step. A couple near the bar whispered urgently. "Attention. Too much attention." "Daniel, stop panicking," she said quickly, forcing a shaky laugh. "She's fine. She always exaggerates these episodes." "This isn't an episode," Daniel snapped, voice cracking under the pressure. "She can't breathe." Ethan was already lowering himself to Emily's level again. He spoke gently, with a steady calm that cut through the chaos. "Emily, hey, you're okay. I'm right here. Try to inhale slowly, okay? Slow. You're safe." But she wasn't safe. Her breaths were getting smaller, faster, desperate. "Someone call medical, now," Daniel shouted. A man near the entrance pulled out his phone. A woman in a red dress rushed toward them, saying she was a nurse. The crowd thickened, forming a loose circle. Vanessa's eyes darted around the room like a trapped animal. She hadn't expected this. She didn't want this. If too many people looked, if too many saw. "And this is getting blown out of proportion," she insisted, voice trembling with forced confidence. "She needs to calm down. Daniel, take her outside. Fresh air will fix it." Daniel glared at her. "You tried to stop me from taking her outside." "That's not what happened." Vanessa snapped. "Don't twist." "Vanessa," Ethan interrupted sharply, "stop talking." Emily's lips trembled. Her chest rose again, then stuttered. "Dad," she whispered, voice thin as paper. "Daddy, help." Daniel's heart broke right there. "I've got you, baby, I've got you." He lifted the handles to move the wheelchair, and Vanessa suddenly grabbed the armrest, stopping the chair again, her face twisting in panic and fury. The moment Vanessa grabbed the armrest, the entire ballroom seemed to inhale at once. Her fingers clamped onto the chair with a desperation that didn't match her polished smile. Daniel froze, shocked that she would physically stop him when their daughter, his daughter, was gasping for air. "Vanessa," he said, voice trembling with rising fury. "Let go." Her eyes darted wildly around the room. Too many witnesses, too many phones half raised, unsure whether to record. Too many people noticing the truth she'd tried so hard to bury under perfect hair and perfect dresses. "Nata?" "I'm trying to help," she hissed, her whisper sharp as broken glass. "If you drag her outside in front of everyone, you'll embarrass yourself. You'll embarrass me." "It's my daughter," Daniel growled. "She needs help." "She needs discipline," Vanessa snapped before she could stop herself. The crowd murmured. Ethan stepped in immediately, voice low and deadly calm. "Let go of the chair, now!" For a split second, Vanessa hesitated, and in that hesitation came the truth. Not concern, not fear for Emily, fear for herself, fear of losing control, fear of being exposed. She released the armrest with a violent flick of her hand as if the chair disgusted her. But her eyes locked onto Daniel's with a warning that made Emily's stomach twist. "You don't understand," Vanessa said quickly, too quickly. "She does this to manipulate you. She's always done it. She's not as fragile as she pretends." Daniel's face hardened. "The only one manipulating anyone tonight is you." Vanessa opened her mouth to argue, but her words died when Emily let out a weak, wheezing cry. A sound so raw and fragile it sliced through the ballroom noise like a blade. "I can't," Emily whispered. "Daddy, I can't breathe. That was it. That was the breaking point. Daniel pushed the wheelchair forward, ready to rush her out through the double doors. But Vanessa moved again. This time not to block him, but to reach into her small clutch bag. Her hand trembled. Her face shifted into something cold, calculating. Ethan saw it first. "Vanessa, what's in your hand?" She froze, and slowly she pulled out a tiny, familiar inhaler, Emily's inhaler, one Emily hadn't had access to all night. The inhaler glinted under the ballroom lights like a tiny piece of stolen hope. For a second, Daniel couldn't process what he was seeing. His mind tried to reject it, push it away, pretend it was a coincidence. But the truth hit him like a punch to the chest. Emily's inhaler. The one she always kept in the small pouch attached to her wheelchair. The one she'd cried over earlier that week when she couldn't find it. The one Vanessa now held casually between two perfectly manicured fingers. Daniel's voice came out strangled. Why do you have that? Vanessa blinked, feigning innocence. Oh, this? She dropped it earlier. I meant to give it back. Ethan's jaw tightened. She dropped it, or you took it? Vanessa shot him a glare sharp enough to cut glass. I don't have to explain myself to you. But the room was watching. Really watching now. Faces that once admired her were filled with doubt, suspicion, even disgust. A woman in a navy gown whispered something to her husband, eyes fixed on the inhaler. A man in a tuxedo shook his head slowly, the realization clicking into place. Daniel stepped closer, voice cracking. Emily hasn't had her inhaler all night. Did you hide it from her? Vanessa let out a brittle laugh. Don't be ridiculous. She didn't need it. She gets dramatic. You know how she is. Emily's breaths were small, rapid puffs now, each one weaker than the last. She stared at the inhaler with a mixture of relief and terror. Relief because her lifeline was finally in sight. Terror because it had been in Vanessa's hand, hidden, controlled, while her lungs screamed for help. Give it to her, Daniel shouted, reaching out. Vanessa jerked her hand back. Daniel, stop! If you give it to her now, right in front of everyone, it'll look like we weren't taking care of her. Do you understand how humiliating that would be for us? For us? Daniel's voice thundered across the ballroom. Ethan's expression darkened completely. You're worried about appearances while a child can't breathe? Emily's eyes rolled slightly, her body sagging in the chair. Daniel lunged toward the inhaler. But Vanessa suddenly stepped back, clutching it tight, her voice cracking as she shouted, Don't touch me! Vanessa's shout echoed through the ballroom, slicing through the music and chatter. Several guests gasped. A waiter stopped mid-step, nearly dropping a tray of champagne flutes. All eyes were on her now, on the woman clutching a child's inhaler like it was a stolen jewel. Daniel stared at her, stunned. Why are you pulling away? Give it to me. She needs it. Vanessa shook her head, stepping backward until her heels brushed the edge of a nearby table. Her face twisted between panic and fury, the mask she wore for months cracking apart in real time. You don't understand, Daniel. If you take this, everyone will think I didn't care for her. Because you didn't, Ethan said sharply. You hid it. Vanessa whirled toward him, eyes blazing. Stay out of this. You've always judged me. This isn't about you, Ethan interrupted, his tone icy. It's about her. He gestured toward Emily, whose small chest heaved in shallow, desperate movements. Emily's head drooped to the side, her breaths coming in thin, trembling gasps. Her lips were beginning to pale. She blinked slowly, as if she were fighting to stay awake. Dad, she whispered, voice breaking. It hurts. Daniel's heart collapsed inside him. Baby, stay with me. I'm right here. I'm right here. He turned back to Vanessa, fury rising. Give me the inhaler now! Vanessa trembled, her hand closing protectively around it. Daniel, you're overreacting. She's trying to make you pity her. She does this to control you. A woman from the crowd stepped forward, early 50s. Elegant black gown, confident posture. Excuse me, she said firmly. I'm a pediatrician. That child is in respiratory distress. If you don't give her the inhaler immediately, it could become life-threatening. Vanessa froze. Whispers rippled through the crowd. Is she serious? Oh my God. That poor girl. Why didn't the stepmother help her? Vanessa's face drained of color. The situation was spiraling fast. Daniel reached again. Vanessa, she jerked away, clinging to the inhaler like her reputation depended on it. Ethan's voice dropped, soft but deadly. If you don't hand it over, everyone here will know exactly what you are. Vanessa's eyes darted wildly, panic setting in. And in her desperation to back away, she stumbled, the inhaler slipping from her fingers and skittering across the ballroom floor. The inhaler skidded across the ballroom floor, spinning once before settling near the base of a tall decorative column. For one long, horrifying second, no one moved. The music had stopped. The conversations had died. Even the air felt frozen. Then Daniel lunged. But he wasn't the only one. A cluster of startled guests stepped aside as Daniel sprinted across the marble floor, shoes slipping slightly on the polished surface. His heart pounded in his ears. All he could think was, she needs it. She needs it now. Behind him, Ethan dropped to one knee beside Emily, steadying her as her breaths turned shallow and faint. "Emily, stay with me," he murmured, voice shaking despite his effort to stay calm. "Help is coming. You're not alone." Her eyelids fluttered weakly. "It's dark," she whispered. No, Ethan said quickly. "Keep your eyes open. Look at me, kiddo. Right here." Vanessa, meanwhile, stared in disbelief at the inhaler lying far from her reach, as though losing hold of it meant losing everything she had carefully crafted. She took a step forward, but the pediatrician blocked her path, eyes sharp with fury and professional authority. "You've done enough," the doctor said coldly. Daniel finally reached the inhaler. He snatched it off the floor, spun around, and bolted back toward his daughter. His hands shook as he ran, fear, rage, guilt all crashing into one overwhelming surge. But as he neared the table, Vanessa suddenly stepped in his path again, desperate and frantic. "Daniel, wait, listen to me." He didn't slow down. "Move," he growled, voice so raw even the nearby guests flinched. Vanessa froze, watching him rush past her. Her facade had shattered completely. Her eyes darted from the crowd gathering around Emily to the accusing stares closing in on her from every direction. She could feel her perfect life slipping through her fingers, piece by piece. Daniel dropped to his knees beside Emily, inhaler already uncapped. "Sweetheart, breathe in. Daddy's here. You're okay. I promise. You're okay." But Emily didn't respond right away. Her chest barely moved. "Come on, baby," Daniel begged, voice cracking. "Breathe." Ethan leaned closer, expression darkening with dread. And then Emily's eyes rolled back, her small body going frighteningly still. Emily's stillness hit the room like a thunderclap. One moment she was trembling, struggling for breath, alive in her fear, and the next she went limp, her head tilting sideways as if gravity had suddenly claimed her. A soft gasp rippled through the crowd. Someone covered their mouth. Someone else whispered, "Oh my God." Daniel's heart stopped. No, Emily," he cried, his voice breaking as he shook her gently. "Sweetheart, open your eyes. Please, Daddy's here. Stay with me." Ethan's face drained of color. He reached out, touching Emily's wrist. "Her pulse is faint," he said urgently. "We need to get air into her. Daniel, use the inhaler now." Daniel pressed the inhaler to her lips with trembling hands. "Come on, baby. Breathe. Please breathe." He squeezed once, twice, counting each precious second between puffs, but Emily didn't react. Her small chest remained frighteningly still. "Let me check her airway," the pediatrician said, rushing over and kneeling beside them. She gently tilted Emily's head back, listening close. "She's barely moving air. We need medical personnel immediately." "They're on the way," someone shouted near the entrance. Every second felt like an eternity. Daniel cupped Emily's cheek, his tears falling onto her skin. "I'm so sorry," he whispered. "I should have protected you. I should have seen." Behind them, Vanessa stood frozen in place, her face pale and twisted, her mascara smudged, her breathing shallow. It was the first time she looked truly afraid. Not for Emily, for herself. She took a tiny step backward, then another. But Ethan caught the movement. His eyes narrowed, cold and sharp as steel. "Don't," he warned. "Don't you dare walk away." Vanessa flinched. I didn't do anything. This isn't my fault. She's being dramatic." Daniel turned his head slowly, staring at her with a look that could shatter stone. "She's 9 years old," he whispered, voice trembling with grief and rage. "And she trusted you." Vanessa's lips parted, but no words came out. The pediatrician gave one sharp command. "Daniel, lift her gently. We need to get her to fresh air now." Daniel scooped Emily into his arms, holding her as if she were glass. And as he stood, Emily's small hand slipped from his grip, hanging limp, completely motionless. Daniel held Emily against his chest as if sheer love could force her lungs to work again. Her head rested on his shoulder, motionless, her breath a faint whisper that vanished more than it existed. Guests stepped aside as he rushed toward the ballroom doors, their horrified gasps trailing behind him like a broken chorus. "Make space!" the pediatrician called out urgently. "She needs air!" Ethan pushed ahead, clearing a path. His jaw was locked, his eyes burning with a fury he no longer tried to hide. "I've got the door! Go, Daniel!" Daniel hurried past him, voice cracking. "Emily, sweetheart, stay with Daddy, okay? We're almost outside, just hold on." But Emily didn't answer. The cold night air hit them as the doors flew open. Daniel knelt on the stone steps of the Plaza Hotel, gently laying Emily in his lap. The pediatrician leaned in immediately, lifting Emily's chin, listening for airflow, checking for movement. "She's fighting," the doctor said, "but she's weak. We need EMTs now." "They're 2 minutes out," a security guard shouted. Daniel's vision blurred with tears. "Baby, come on. Breathe for Daddy." Ethan stood beside them, fists clenched, chest rising and falling with anger and fear. "Daniel, she's strong. She's going to push through." Behind them, the ballroom doors opened again. Vanessa appeared in the doorway, hesitant, shaking, mascara streaked in jagged lines down her face. Guests were watching her now, not with admiration but with horror, with judgment, and with realization. A woman pointed at her. She was holding the inhaler. Another murmured. She stopped the father from taking the girl outside. Voices began rising, low at first, then louder, like a growing storm. Vanessa's breath hitched. She looked at the crowd, then at Daniel, then at the child she had spent months despising. Her hands trembled violently. I didn't mean for this to happen," she whispered. Ethan turned slowly, eyes locked on her. "Yes, you did." "No," Vanessa insisted, stepping down one stair. "You don't understand. I was trying to teach her." Teach her," Daniel snapped, lifting his head, grief twisting into rage. "Teach her what? How to suffer, how to be terrified, how to stop breathing." Vanessa's lips quivered. "I never wanted—" "Save it," Ethan said, stepping forward. "Everyone here saw the truth tonight." The pediatrician pressed 2 fingers to Emily's neck, then looked up sharply. "She's fading." Daniel let out a strangled sob. And then Emily's tiny chest gave the faintest shudder, as if fighting one last time for life. Emily's faint shudder forced everyone into silence. Daniel held her tighter, as if his arms alone could anchor her to life. The pediatrician leaned closer, listening carefully, her brow furrowing as Emily's breaths came in fragile, inconsistent threads. The night air was cold, but Emily's skin felt colder. "We're losing her," the doctor said softly. Daniel's voice cracked. "No, please, not my baby." Ethan knelt beside him, steady and focused despite the tremor in his hands. "Emily, hey, you're not done. You hear me? You stay with your dad." His voice broke for the first time. "You deserve so much better than this." Behind them, Vanessa took another shaky step down the stairs. The crowd parted just enough to let her through, but the space around her was heavy, thick with judgment, disbelief, quiet outrage. She stared at Emily's limp body, her face twisting between fear and something almost like regret. Almost, but not enough. Vanessa tried again, voice trembling. "Daniel, I didn't mean—" Daniel snapped his head toward her, eyes red, jaw clenched so tightly it shook. "You didn't mean what? To hurt her? To humiliate her? To take away her inhaler so she'd behave?" Vanessa's breath quickened. "I just wanted her to stop ruining everything. The panic attacks, the wheezing, Ethan stood abruptly. "Stop talking." The command was soft, deadly, final. Vanessa froze. "You don't get to justify hurting a child," he said, stepping toward her, each word cutting deeper than the last. "You don't get to hide behind excuses while she's fighting for her life." Vanessa swallowed hard, looking around desperately as if someone, anyone, might defend her. But no one did. Faces glared back at her with disgust. "I can explain," she whispered weakly. "No," Ethan said, "you can't." At that moment, the distant wail of sirens echoed through Fifth Avenue, drawing closer, louder, slicing through the tension. The pediatrician called out urgently, "We need to move her inside. Prepare her for EMT arrival." Daniel nodded, lifting Emily carefully into his arms again. "Hold on, sweetheart." Ethan placed a steady hand on Daniel's back. "I'm right here. I'm not leaving." Vanessa took a step forward, reaching out slightly. "Daniel, please." He didn't even look at her. And when the ambulance turned the corner, its lights reflecting off Vanessa's pale, shaking face, she realized Daniel might never look at her the same again. The ambulance screeched to a stop as paramedics rushed up the grand steps of the plaza, carrying equipment and oxygen. Daniel stepped back to let them work, his arms shaking from holding Emily. He felt the warmth of her body fading, slipping through his fingers in real time. Ethan stood right beside him, a steady presence in the chaos. "Pulse is weak," one paramedic said. "Get the oxygen on her, now." A mask was placed over Emily's mouth. Another paramedic tilted her head, checking her airway. "We've got shallow breaths. Stay with us, sweetheart." The crowd hovering near the doorway held their breath as if their silence might steady Emily's. Daniel ran a trembling hand through her hair. "Daddy's right here. Don't go anywhere." Vanessa stood several steps away, arms wrapped around herself, shaking, not from concern, but from unraveling panic. She'll be fine," she whispered almost to herself. "She just needs to calm down. This is what happens when people overreact." Ethan heard it, and something inside him snapped. He turned toward her, eyes burning with a fury he could no longer contain. "Overreact?" he repeated slowly. "A child couldn't breathe. A child!" Vanessa flinched, stepping back instinctively. "You hit her inhaler," Ethan continued, voice rising. "You stopped her father from taking her outside. You put pressure on her chest while she was gasping for air. You knew exactly what you were doing." Guests murmured louder now. Someone said, "She could have killed that girl." Another whispered, "Call the police." Vanessa shook her head violently. No, I didn't mean it like that. I was trying to discipline her." "Discipline?" Ethan stepped forward, towering over her. "You call that discipline? You call that love? You call that being a mother?" Vanessa's voice cracked. "Daniel, tell him he's wrong. Tell them I didn't—" Daniel finally turned to face her. The look in his eyes made her knees buckle. "You hurt my daughter," he whispered. "You nearly killed her." Vanessa stumbled back, breath shaking. Then Ethan, unable to hold back another second, stepped toward her, voice thundering through the golden-lit lobby. "Stop!" The word echoed like a gunshot, and Vanessa froze, caught, exposed, cornered. Ethan's shout sliced the air clean in half. The lobby went silent, eerily, painfully silent, as every guest, waiter, security guard, and paramedic turned toward him. Vanessa stood frozen, her eyes wide, her breath shaking like a trapped animal. She tried to stand taller, tried to pull her mask back on, but it was too late. There was nothing left to hide behind. Daniel faced her fully now, exhaustion and heartbreak carved into every line of his face. "Ethan said stop," he murmured, voice low but trembling with rage. "And you will." Vanessa's hands fluttered helplessly. "Daniel, you have to listen to me. Everyone is twisting this. They didn't see what happened earlier. She was acting out. She was trying to embarrass me." The pediatrician stepped forward sharply. "A 9-year-old child in a wheelchair does not act out by stopping her own breathing." Some guests gasped. Others held their breath, anger simmering across their shocked faces. Vanessa's lips trembled. "You don't understand. She gets into these moods and she almost died," the doctor said bluntly. The words hit Vanessa like a slap. Her eyes darted wildly between the crowd as if searching for even one person who believed her. But every face reflected the same thing: horror, disgust, judgment. Then Ethan reached into his tuxedo jacket and pulled something out. A tiny black pin, no larger than a fingernail. For a moment, no one understood, until he turned it slightly, revealing a tiny blinking red dot. A microphone. A recorder. The crowd gasped. Vanessa's knees buckled. No, you didn't." Ethan's voice was calm, steady, merciless. "I turned it on the moment I saw you shove her wheelchair in the ballroom. I wasn't sure what you were doing. Now I know." He pressed a button on his phone and a clear audio clip filled the lobby speakers. Vanessa's voice, sharp and unmistakable. "Stop that pathetic breathing thing. I'm not dealing with it tonight." Another voice, Emily's tiny, broken whisper. "I'm trying. I just need air." Another clip, Vanessa's hiss. "You're ruining everything. Do you hear me? Everything." The room erupted, outrage, disbelief, horrified murmurs. Daniel's hands shook as he stared at Vanessa. "That's who you really are." Vanessa's mouth opened, but before she could speak, security stepped forward. The moment security stepped forward, Vanessa's entire body seemed to collapse inward. Her shoulders caved, her breath hitched, and her perfectly curated world shattered like glass on marble. "No, no, please," she whispered, backing up the steps as the guards approached. "You can't do this. Daniel, tell them. Tell them I didn't mean any harm." Daniel didn't move. His eyes were hollow, devastated, filled with a grief so deep it silenced the entire lobby. He looked at Vanessa, not with anger now, but with something far worse. Disgust. "You abused my daughter," he said quietly, "and you lied to me. For months." Vanessa shook her head rapidly. No, it wasn't like that, I swear. She was manipulative. She made me look bad. She made everything difficult." "She's a child," Ethan snapped. "A disabled child, and you made every day harder for her." Guests murmured in outrage. A man in a navy suit stepped forward. "I saw you yank her wheelchair earlier," he said. "You almost tipped her over." A woman chimed in, voice trembling with fury. "I heard the way you spoke to her. How could you talk to a child like that?" I didn't. "You're twisting this," Vanessa cried, her voice cracking as she stumbled back another step. "I'm the victim here. You don't understand what that little—" Daniel stepped forward so quickly Vanessa froze mid-sentence. "Say another word about her," he warned, "and I will make sure you never come near us again." Vanessa's mouth opened, but nothing came out. She looked around, desperate for a lifeline. There was none. Every face showed the truth. She was done. Security reached her, placing a hand on her arm. "Ma'am, we need you to come with us." Vanessa jerked away. "Get your hands off me! I am Daniel Carter's wife. I belong here. These people don't know anything." "You won't be my wife for much longer," Daniel said coldly. The words hit harder than any slap. Vanessa's face crumpled, streaked with smeared mascara and humiliation. "You can't leave me," she whispered, voice cracking. "You can't." "I already have," Daniel said. At that moment, a paramedic stepped outside from the lobby, breathless. "We've stabilized her, but she's asking for her father." Daniel's eyes flooded with relief. He pushed past Vanessa without a second glance and ran inside. Daniel sprinted back through the golden lobby, weaving past stunned guests until he reached the small room where paramedics were gathered. Emily lay on a stretcher, an oxygen mask gently rising and falling with her breaths. The faint movement, so small, so fragile, felt like a miracle. "Sweetheart," Daniel whispered as he reached her side, brushing a trembling hand along her cheek. Her eyelids fluttered, then lifted just enough for her to see him. Her voice was barely a thread. "Daddy?" "I'm here," he said, kneeling beside her. "I'm not going anywhere." Ethan stood quietly in the corner, relief softening the tension that had gripped him all night. The pediatrician gave Daniel a reassuring nod. "She's stable. Weak, but stable. She'll need monitoring at the hospital, but she's a fighter." Emily squeezed Daniel's hand. Did I mess up the party?" Daniel's heart broke all over again. "No, baby, you didn't mess up anything. None of this was your fault. You're the bravest girl I've ever known." A tear slipped from her eye. "I was scared." "I know," Daniel whispered, pressing his forehead gently to hers. "And I'm so sorry I didn't see the truth sooner. I'm sorry I didn't protect you." Emily's voice wavered. Will Vanessa hurt me again?" Daniel shook his head firmly. "She will never come near you again, I promise." Outside the room, police escorted Vanessa through the lobby as guests whispered, recorded, and watched the once perfect woman fall apart completely. Her protests grew weaker, more desperate, swallowed by the clicking of cameras and the stern voices of officers reading her rights. Her luxury world crumbled in front of everyone. Ethan stepped closer to Daniel and Emily. "I'll make arrangements at the hospital," he said gently. "Anything you two need, it's done." Daniel looked up at him, eyes full of gratitude. "Thank you. For everything." Ethan smiled softly. "She deserves safety. She deserves love. You both do." Emily reached a small, shaky hand toward Ethan. "You helped me." He knelt beside her. "I'll keep helping you, as long as you want me around." Emily managed the smallest smile. "I do." Daniel wrapped an arm protectively around her, warmth filling the space where fear once lived. And for the first time in a very long time, Emily felt safe, truly, finally safe, as her new life began. So that's how the story comes to an end. And if you're still here with me right now, my friend, that means something in this journey touched your heart in a real way. Maybe it reminded you of someone you love. Maybe it brought back a moment where you felt powerless, or a moment where you found strength you didn't know you had. What happened to little Emily reminds us of a truth we often forget. Kindness is not optional. It's a responsibility, and protecting the vulnerable is one of the purest forms of love. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "What is not good for the beehive cannot be good for the bee." In other words, when one of us is hurting, all of us are called to step up. Healing doesn't always come from grand gestures. Sometimes it comes from the courage to say enough, like Ethan did, or the courage to keep breathing through fear, like Emily. And sometimes it simply comes from refusing to let darkness win. If this story moved you even just a little, do me a small favor. Like this video, share it with someone who might need it, and subscribe to our channel, because together we can keep telling stories that remind us of who we can be at our best, braver, kinder, and more human.